the channel. I'm so glad you're here. If you're new here, my name is Irma Mast and I make videos about faith, minimalism, simple living. I grew up Amish, so will be doing Q&As or any kind of interest you have there. I live simply and talk about simple living as well. So today I'm going to be sharing about my testimony. I hope you're doing well, where you're coming in from, what part of the world, what state. And I think we'll just get into it. So I grew up Amish, as if you've been here for a while, you know that. And I grew up in a family of 11 children. I have 6 sisters and 4 brothers. And so I grew up in a Christian home. My mom is a Christian. My parents are believers, and I know about God all my life. I went to church all of my life, and I have been grew up with knowing Bible stories and going to church and hearing about God and so forth. I was a very carefree child as a child growing up. The first that I can kind of remember was at the age of 13. There was in school. I was in 8th grade in school, and I loved school. Classes were easy for me, and I really enjoyed school. I enjoyed baseball and recess time. Most of the time, I went to a Amish parochial school, and in my 8th grade year was my hardest year. And there were some things in recesses where the teachers didn't always come out to play, so we didn't play nicely. The games weren't organized games going. It was just kind of mixed up, and with no leaders there, it didn't always go too well. And it got to the point where I dreaded at recesses because we didn't play, and there was just a few of us that really wanted to play and were more competitive, were the ones that were always caught first. And it was just a lot of small things that added up to the point where I didn't like recesses. I remember going to the restroom and just praying that I knelt down and I prayed that God, that the teachers would come out to play, or that something be that that God that recesses would change somehow. And I came out of the restroom, and the teachers were out playing, and the rest of the year recesses were better. So it wasn't a good rest of the year, but this specific thing stood out to me a lot. Like that God hears my prayer, and that God cares about things, and He doesn't always answer the way we want to, and He doesn't always answer that quickly, but that was just very encouraging for me in my very beginning walk of life. So the following years, kind of what I mostly remember is praying about this and praying about that, the things that came up that bothered me in life or that wasn't going well. And Mom's face, seeing my mom pray about everything, and her faith in God, and seeing her relationship, how she connected with God, how she talked to God about everything, how she stood in faith, and how the connection I saw that my mom had with God was very, very inspiring. I think that was probably one of my biggest things that led me to accepting God and wanting that with God, because I needed Him. I needed a rock in my life, and I needed someone to guide me, and someone bigger than me. And so that was just very, very encouraging as well. I started reading the Bible at 13 or 14, and I read the Bible through, I believe, the New Testament, and I just drank up each word. Like I loved the Bible, and I would say that is like kind of where my journey with God started. And if you're not a believer here, that's totally okay. I'm glad that you're here anyways. I have friends that are non-Christian. I'm friends with anyone. You don't have to be of the same faith that I am, but this is just my story and what I believe. And it was after that that I started kind of feeling in my conscience some things that I had done in the past that never had bothered me. And I talked about it with Mom, and I felt I was forgiven. I would say the next few years was kind of mostly with that. I read the Bible, and I had never heard, people say I accepted Christ, or I got saved, or how people's lives were changed. In the Amish culture, you just don't hear that. And even when people get baptized, there's no testimony, or there's sometimes no change in people's lives, because because of the way their tradition is. And so I didn't tell anyone, but I didn't really realize that I would have been saved. I just knew that I was praying, and that God heard me. And I don't think I never questioned whether God existed. I knew, like my parents would always say about, nature and things, and about God, and I was just in awe of how God could create things and do things. I never doubted the existence of God, but to actually have a personal relationship and to get to know Him on a personal level is a whole different, has much more meaning. And I've heard, some people say the Bible is just a book of rules, and maybe that is how it feels for you. The Bible is a history book, basically. It's written in history, and it's full of stories, and it's full of God's breathed in truth, and it fills us. And God is a God is a very relational God, and He has, the scriptures bring out who He is, and there's always things to relate in, and always a new thing in the Bible, no often how you read it. And God is a very relational God, not a God of law. I'm sorry if you got hurt, and I'm sorry if that is the perception that you have. There have always been things in life that try to avoid those truths and try to block out things. But getting back to my story, let me grab a glass of water. Okay. So, getting back to my story, where was I going? So, at age of 14, 15, I would say there was just a lot of small things that my relationship with God grew. I didn't know what it meant to be saved exactly. I love reading, and in school I read a lot. I read book after book, and in my teenage years I read a lot, and I was always just loved books where people's lives were dramatically changed, and most of those were Mennonites. And I was always a question in my mind, why are they Mennonite? Like, why are there no stories of Amish people that people's lives got drastically changed and where they accepted Christ? I always wanted to know why do things. I was a question, one that always asked my parents a lot of questions, and sometimes they had answers, and sometimes they didn't know why either, why we dressed the way we did, why we did things the way we did. Not that some of the things I didn't care, but some of the things were just, small things that were like, big deal. At 16, I started having some health issues, and that is a story that I will be sharing sometime separately, because that has intensely changed my life very, very much. But it is very long, and I think it's worth a story in itself. But I was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr virus, if you're more familiar with the terms mononucleosis. And not feeling well, I had more time, and I definitely took more time in reading the Bible and learning scripture. And I got a study Bible from my brother that was in English, and it had those notes at the bottom. And I don't encourage everyone to just to read those notes and go with that. Those are definitely people's opinions, but I think it definitely helped me in being open to different views from what I was taught at church, or what my parents and what the Amish were taught and what the Amish did. There was explanations that made more sense, and it helped me understand things. And then I realized that I had never, verbally accepted Christ, and there was just something that happened within me that when I actually verbally said, prayed that God would forgive me, and that that I would accept Him as my personal Savior, and I prayed it out loud, like, as God is right here. He is with us wherever we are. Whether you're in your room right now or whether you're outside, God is right there with you if you're a Christian. And if you're not, He hears you exactly where you are at. And so that was kind of another point where I feel was a step in my relationship with God. In the following years, there was a lot of confusion for me. It's kind of spiritual confusion, and as I said before, I didn't have anyone to go to. I didn't have anyone to say, "Hey, I'm saved," or what happened inside. I didn't know what happened. I didn't understand myself. I didn't hear other people being saved or how their lives changed. I had no idea what was going on. And for years, I was really confused as far as a lot of spiritual things. And then the practice of, I wanted to get baptized, but at the same time, the Amish baptized, you had to be following their rules. And I didn't have a problem with that, but at the same time, I didn't really feel that should be tied in with baptism. Baptism is an outward sign of what happened on the inside. And while I wanted to be baptized, I was just in a spiritual, emotional confusion. And I also remember just hearing voices like where the preachers would preach, you believe and you're baptized, you will be saved. And I did believe, but I wasn't baptized. Does that mean I'm not saved? And there was just a lot of just confusion and a cry for answers. I wanted answers. I wanted truth. I wanted to know what is going on. I eventually decided to get baptized. I knew that baptism wasn't promising that you're staying Amish. It's a promise that that you have accepted Christ, and it's an act of obedience, because the Bible does talk about being baptized when you're saved. And I truly wanted that. And for my old life, as an outward representative, that my old life is washed away, and that I'm buried in Christ as an outward sign that my sins are washed away. So I did get baptized knowing that I knew the Amish had a lot of traditions that were not scriptural, and I knew I was promising that I would follow God with my whole heart and mind and soul. And I wanted to be baptized, and the question in the baptism, you could take a few ways, and I decided to get baptized, and because that was what God told us to do, and not because I would be promising to always be Amish. So I got baptized, I believe I was 18 and a half or so, and then I continued to have health issues. At 18, I was diagnosed with Lyme's, and that really affected my life and my walk with Christ. In the next years, I sought some counseling. I was in long-term counseling places that had an impact in my life. Through those years, I just really felt God wanted me to leave the Amish, and I had felt that for a number of years, sometimes struggled with it on and off. And I was like, the first time that it really hit me, I was biking on the road, and it was like I just heard this loud voice, and I remember looking around. There was no one around, and I knew it was God. And I wrestled with it, and sometimes I would just put it like, no, that's probably not God, because I knew if I would talk about it with anyone, they wouldn't agree. And I didn't need more stress in my life. I had a high stress life the way it was, and as years went on, I just knew that was what God wanted me to do. And at the same time, I felt also that maybe I could be Amish. I could accept Christ and I could be Amish, an Amish Christian as far as that is concerned. And part of me just wanted to do that because that was in my comfort zone, and I thought I would just do that. Well, I didn't have peace with not following God. I knew I wanted to follow God, and every now and then it would come up. I just knew He wanted me to leave. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. I didn't know where. I didn't know. I didn't have a job to support myself. There was just all of these things that didn't make sense. And I prayed, okay, God, if that's what you want me to do. And I had felt about this, that I was supposed to go to this specific church. And I didn't know anyone that went there, even if the building wasn't used. But I prayed that, God, if this is what you want for me, help me to get to know someone that goes there, or that I know they're a Christian, or something that I just know that I know that this is what you want for me. And I kind of left it at that, I'm willing, show me. About a year later, I went to this ministry place for counseling, for mostly just for emotional. I was hoping to sort through things, and I wasn't planning on leaving. I was just wanting to sort through things and hope that would all help, and help my physical health as well. I did go to the ministry place, and after I was there for a while, I realized that some of the staff there went to this specific church. And then it dawned on me the prayer I had prayed and the things that God had told me. And I knew that that's what He wanted. I went through the ministry place. I did not get to sort through the things spiritually. We were not allowed to talk about say living the Amish or some of those things. We weren't allowed to talk about it, so I didn't talk about it. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I was feeling, but I feel there was a reason why I went to that ministry. And
I just want to add that they did help me.
As time went on, there were times when I thought, I'm willing, Lord. And there were times when I thought, I can't. I didn't have a job. How would I leave? I knew it would cause a lot of stress. I can't deal with that. I need support. And that truly was true. And I just really wrestled with it. I wasn't really able to process things when I was still confused. Several years later, I think I was 21 at the time. One evening, I just knew that that's what I was supposed to do. I knew I had to tell someone what was inside, that I felt God wanted me to leave. I knew I was at a place where I was either I have to do that to have peace with God. I couldn't just stuff it anymore. I wanted a deeper relationship with Him. And I had all these other areas in my life I could talk about it with God, and He would work through things, and I would feel closer with Him, and He would work in my life, and He would work things. But this one area, I felt helpless because I didn't have a job, and the reality of it was I was barely going to church because of my health, and it just ate away at me, and I knew nothing else mattered. I wanted what God wanted for me, and I didn't really care about dress, or I didn't care to dress Amish or live the Amish lifestyle. I didn't feel everything was necessarily scriptural, but I didn't figure I would ever find a church that I would agree with everything, and I thought I could be content with that, and I could. I just didn't have peace. And so I cried in my room, and I was living with a couple, a very nice couple, And I went downstairs. I went downstairs on the porch where they were sitting. I went outside